So Andy Ruiz is apparently still pushing for the Deontay Wilder fight. Well, never mind the Wilder fight. He just needs to fight anybody at this stage because he's been far too inactive. The same goes for Deontay Wilder. You shouldn't just wait around for the big fights. Stay busy, even if it's just against journeymen. Look at what Anthony Joshua's doing. I know I've been very critical of Anthony Joshua, but the one good thing he's doing is staying active. Ring activity is an absolute must. Anyway, Andy Ruiz says he still wants to fight Deontay Wilder. He said he had a dream that he knocked Deontay Wilder out. So to quote him here, he said, "Wilder, let's talk one-on-one. You got my number, I got your number. Let's get on the phone call and make it happen, brother. If he thinks fighting me is easy, then give me the 25 million that you say I was asking for. I had a dream that I beat up Deontay Wilder. God gave me that dream and I had my hand raised. I've been trying to fight him for a long time. I win by knockout. All I'm going to do is counterpunch his punches and that's it. I'm going to stay small and I'm going to win. I'm going to beat him with combinations, seeing the punches, reacting, explosiveness, and hitting him with that great shot. I'm going to return next year. I'm just trying to get in there and get my feet wet, you know? Best believe that you guys are going to see the bounce back of Andy Ruiz Jr. No fight is easy, trust me. Even if you fight the easiest guy, it's not easy. All right, those are the words of Andy Ruiz. And yeah, as I said at the top of the video, he needs to stay active and he's talking about just getting out there and staying active. Andy Ruiz ain't getting no younger. What is he now, like 33, 34, something like that? Yeah, he's got a bit more time left than Deontay Wilder, but he needs to stay sharp. PBC fighters in particular are so inactive, it's ridiculous. And they just gather all this rust while they're sitting on the shelf. And it is not just down to PBC. I have to imagine it's down to the fighters as well because they want a certain amount of money every time they step out. They have to be willing to take pay cuts just to get some extra activity. That's what Anthony Joshua did against Robert Helenius. He took a pay cut. At the end of the day, you're still going to get the big fights if you win these lesser fights anyway. So if you think about it that way, you're actually not taking a pay cut. Do you know what I mean? Because you're getting more fights in and then you get the big one afterwards. You end up with more money. I mean, maybe Al Heyman and PBC dissuade the likes of Andy Ruiz and other PBC fighters from doing stuff like that. Again, Anthony Joshua just fought a couple of fringe contenders. You might even class Robert Helenius as a journeyman. He managed to get that done. Why can't Andy Ruiz and Deontay Wilder do the same? Just get active. Anyway, Andy Ruiz versus Deontay Wilder at this stage, based on the way Anthony Joshua's looked in his last couple fights, his lack of confidence, at this stage, I actually find Wilder Ruiz more intriguing than Wilder Joshua. If the version of Anthony Joshua that we saw in his last two fights steps in the ring against Deontay Wilder, I would expect him to get cleaned out in a couple of rounds. If AJ can find his confidence from somewhere, maybe I'll reassess. But as it stands right now, I think Wilder just blows right through Anthony Joshua. Whereas with Andy Ruiz, I think he's more confident. I think he's got a better chin than Anthony Joshua. I think he's mentally a tougher guy. And I think he genuinely fancies his chances against Wilder. Could Wilder knock him out? Of course Wilder could knock him out. But I think Andy Ruiz could knock Wilder out too. Again, he does have the age on Deontay Wilder. He's a younger guy. Now, in terms of the strategy, he talked about counterpunching Wilder, but he didn't talk about whether he intended to do that on the back foot or the front foot. Now, some people might scoff at, what are you talking about back foot? Andy Ruiz is only about 6 feet tall. He's not going to fight on the back foot against Deontay Wilder. Well, I didn't think he would fight on the back foot against Luis Ortiz. I know Luis Ortiz isn't as tall as Wilder, but I didn't think he'd fight the way he did against Ortiz. But as we saw in that fight, he was circling around the ring, a lot of the time in the middle of the ring, but sometimes on the back foot, and he was counterpunching with the right hand. It was a style that we haven't seen from Andy Ruiz before. He did do a bit of it as well against Chris Arreola, but he was a lot lighter in that fight. Now, if Andy Ruiz fights that way against Wilder, I don't think that would be a good idea. I would expect him to lose if he fights that way. I think if he's going to beat Deontay Wilder, he would need to fight the way he did in the first Anthony Joshua fight. Just apply pressure and counterpunch on the front foot, rather than counterpunching in the middle of the ring or on the back foot. I think that's where Andy Ruiz is at his best. I mean, you go back and look at Andy Ruiz when he fought Joseph Parker. Officially, he lost that fight. Many people thought it was a bad decision, but Ruiz was razor sharp. You remember that Joseph Parker? He was absolutely razor sharp with the counters. Whenever Parker would throw anything, Ruiz would come back with these blistering hooks right away. He really put Joseph Parker on his P's and Q's. I think that is the kind of Andy Ruiz that would be needed to beat somebody like a Deontay Wilder. Because once Wilder gets hit with a few of those fast counters, now all of a sudden he's not so sure about throwing the right hand. We know that Deontay Wilder's a gunslinger. We know that Deontay Wilder is a very brave fighter. He's a risk taker, but he can be cautious in certain fights. The Luis Ortiz rematch springs to mind. Very cautious in that fight. Didn't want to get countered with anything. Waited and waited and waited and waited for the perfect opportunity to land his right hand, which he took, and obviously it paid off. But against Andy Ruiz, a younger guy, a two-handed guy, he's not just relying on one punch, a better pressure fighter than Luis Ortiz, a better chin than Luis Ortiz, you know? I think it's very interesting. I'm not saying Andy Ruiz definitely wins, but to me, it's a very interesting fight. I hope that fight happens. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. If it does, what do you think the strategy for Andy Ruiz should be? Do you agree with me that he needs to go back to his traditional style? Or do you think that he can actually throw Deontay Wilder a curveball and fight the way he did against Luis Ortiz and get the win over Deontay Wilder by just counterpunching on the back foot, in the middle of the ring, etc.? Let me know. And before I go, I want to give a shout out to all the new subscribers to my Patreon page. I cover loads of different topics in my weekly podcast, as you can see on screen right now, from current events to deep dives down the rabbit hole and everything in between. I'm really enjoying the feedback and the discussions we've been having on there lately. So if you'd like to join the conversation, just click the link in the description box below. Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast, where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there.